another episode of the Next Fix podcast, and I feel wholeheartedly that I have a person, a gentleman here, Ivan. Yeah, I feel like he is the story that I like to hear so much, and it's the comeback story. And so, Ivan, thanks for showing up today. Thanks for spending your time with me and my audience here. How you doing today, bro?
Thanks for having me, brother. Yeah, I'm good. Like I said just before we got on here, I got back to back today, so I'm pumped. Went for a drive this morning, cleared my head, did my thing, and morning workout, and I'm ready to roll, brother.
Checking off the boxes. Those are important boxes for sure. But yeah, let's dive in, man. What did it look like, man, when the train was coming off the tracks and you're looking at yourself in the mirror and thinking, I gotta fucking do something? You know, like what did that look like? When were the dark moments?
It was exactly that, actually. It was a look in the mirror. So before that, fast forward a little bit, man, I had a decent childhood. You know, we all had our struggles growing up. But just before my 18th birthday, my cousin Tyler, he was my best friend. We were cousins, same age, grew up together. He actually lived with me just before that. He hung himself on a doorknob. And it was like, that was the start. I didn't have good leadership in my circle. There, you know what I mean? It was, I was left to my own demise on how to figure that out in my own mind. Right? So basically, after that, I went to school, moved away, went to school for motorcycle mechanics, finished my apprenticeship, working for Harley Davidson, and spent my life working there and hanging out with Harley guys. You know, it was strip clubs, you know, snorting lines off of hookers' asses, and that was my life. And, you know, even after that, I wanted to do something different. I really didn't care if I lived or died. And when I became a certified motorcycle mechanic, I'm like, well, what else can I do? So I started looking at the trades and what's the most dangerous thing that I can do that I could possibly, you know, ride the edge. And I became an arborist. I figured climbing trees with a chainsaw dinging off my head would be
You're moving at a blistering pace here, man. Let me catch up because
yeah.
All right, man. So, all right, you know, tragedy hits you early on, right? And you're kind of staring that in the face, and that's an important lesson for all of us, right? Because it is a part of it, right? It is a part of all of our journeys, and so that hits you in the face. But from what I'm gathering, you have this like proclivity for the edge, right? Like you want that hardcore, right? It's not enough just to do the cocaine off of a nice table or a clean plate. It's like, I want this surface, right? And it's that extra bit. And for people that understand and get it, it's like, it's not just enough. Like forever pursuing that edge, man. It's hard. It's exhausting and shit, man. It's like, just like you said, you were in search of, like, your brain was like, okay, motorcycles are cool. They go fast. You can die here, but like, I need something more. And so then that's kind of where you're at. And you said chainsaws are the option. And just real quickly, man, like my experience, and I'm down here in Florida, like tree guys are always on meth. I don't know what it is. Like it's that type of person. They're like, fuck it. You know, I'm already on this shit. I'll climb that tree in a heartbeat. Yeah, give me that saw and they work like maniacs. So, all right. So this is the industry. You went from motorcycles, right? And you're fucking with drugs and things like that. And you're around the Harley kind of brand, right? The motorcycle guy kind of brand. Okay. So then now you're in the chainsaws and fucking trees, which is its own unique thing. So, all right. So that's where we're at. Right. So, all right. I'm caught up. Thanks, man.
So I'm like, I'll just keep going. It stopped me at any time. But yeah, at that point, you know, I've always had a good drive. I've always been able to be fairly successful, you know, financially at least. I've been able to draw things close to me and wheel and deal, right? So I ended up starting my own business, fairly successful, you know, not anything extravagant because I wasn't a good leader. I couldn't lead a team. And it wasn't until I was 35, you know, my second child is on my third child was just born. It's 2020, COVID's kind of crazy. And I'm looking at my son and I wake up one morning, it was Boxing Day, and, you know, sorry, man, just replaying this is brutal. I wake up in the morning, it's like 11 o'clock. I look out of the window and I see my pickup truck and it's parked. I'm in Niagara in Canada. It's parked half on the lawn and half in the driveway with the driver's side door still wide open. I have no
Yeah.
fucking idea how I got home. And, there's snow blowing into the sea. And I'm just like, I hear the sound of cartoons and I'm just mad. I come out of my bedroom and I'm literally ready to yell at my 5-year-old daughter for having the cartoons too loud. And then it was just a paradigm shift right there at that moment. It was like, and that was the mirror moment. She's staring up at me, waiting for a hug from her daddy. And I'm ready to scold her for doing exactly what she was supposed to be doing, being a kid. And choked up, I went to the bathroom and I'm staring at myself. I'm 245 pounds at the time. And this is the first time I've looked in the mirror in a long time. I used to brush my teeth in the shower because I couldn't face myself.
Shit. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was at that moment I'm like, I am causing my family harm. I said, I'm either going to kill myself or I'm going to kill the old me. And just staring in that mirror, deciding which way I was going to go, I decided on the latter. And that was it. That was the last time I ever drank. The problem was I looked at the traditional programs, and to me, this is my own opinion, it was a victimhood culture. So I saw my sister go through the traditional program. At this point, she was 3 years sober, just a month earlier. And I watched her do that. She was a smart girl. She lived in Texas and she was one of 2 engineers that worked for TransCanada in the US. So she was an international welding engineer and she wrote the code for the welders on all the pipelines. Like she was top notch.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, she would always call me, hey, brother. We were super tight. She was my best friend. She would call me, hey, brother, I'm sick. I can't help it, And then I'm like, you're not sick. Like, this isn't a disease, Genevieve. I'm like, you can grow and get into personal development and do all of these things. And she's like, it's a life sentence. She goes, it's just something I have to live with.
Fuck. Oh
And,
man.
and, and man, I just couldn't do it. I went to a couple meetings and I'm in a circle and people are attaching their name to an identity that they no longer want. They're admitting that they're powerless to, and I'm going, I can't attach my name to that identity. No fucking way. I'll never escape it. I'll always be in this trap. So I designed my own program. Basically, I designed my own process. It's always kind of been a thing of mine, reason I'm an entrepreneur, I guess. And so the idea was no matter what happened in my life, I would build armor. I would build mental and emotional armor, not to compartmentalize myself, but to have the mental fortitude to withstand anything again in my life. No matter what happened, I would stay strong and stay the path. And 3 years, almost to the day, my sister shot herself.
Fuck.
So her sobriety birthday, she called it, was in November. Her birthday was 7 days later and her death date was 7 days after that. And, I've never been to Texas. I flew down to Texas right away. Like she'd always come up here to visit and I flew down to Texas.
Well, let me just get the lay of the land here. Right. Okay. So she's in recovery. Her route's different than yours, but you develop your own system before her death, right? Like you had already developed that
3 years.
And so she commits suicide. You're going down to Texas. Okay. All right. Thanks, man.
Turns out her husband fell into methamphetamine. She met him in traditional program. He fell into methamphetamine. He's next of kin. He's MIA. We're trying to get my sister's body released. My mom's a wreck. And I'm standing in a hotel. I come out of the gym in the morning, go shower up, get my mom, wake her up, get her ready for the day. I'm big on building plans now. It's part of my process. And, come up with a plan for the day. And my mom looks at me. It was about 5 days later. She looks at me and she says, honey, she goes, if this happened 3 years ago, I would have lost both my children. And she was right. I would have either killed him and ended up in a Texas prison, the person I used to be, or I would have drank myself to death, or I would have killed myself. And it was at that moment there that I decided that the process I had made can benefit millions of other men. And, and then I started doing some research on how many men out there viewed the traditional programs the way I did and just never took action because there's nothing else. And it was at that moment I started Clad Brotherhood, and that's kind of what I've been doing since, is helping and coaching men to live a life of sobriety, right? Live a life of excellence through sobriety,
Well,
really.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, man. I was exactly why I didn't take to the rooms, man. I went in there, and I understand that admitting, that you got a problem is big. It's a huge thing. I understand that. However, looking back, I don't even know how I had the clarity to see it. Maybe I didn't see it. Maybe it was my subconscious just was kicking and screaming against solidifying that identity. And every time I spoke it into the universe, I felt I was, I am is so powerful, right? And so every time I said I'm an alcoholic, it wasn't freeing. I was just like, I kind of like that. In addition to me not looking to my left or my right and being so thoroughly impressed, I just wasn't. I know there was a lot of vulnerability and that takes strength, and that is all very cool. But I felt, and it could just be the places that I was exposed to, there wasn't too much focus on the future. That bothered me. That bothered me because I was like, man, is anybody doing anything cool? No, everybody's just bitching about, traffic. And I was like, I just can't do this. This isn't for me. And I'm not taking anything away from the rooms because it has saved so many people. There's no denying that. There's no denying that. But I am definitely on the side of the road that you're on. And it's, from my favorite Canadian, no offense, but Jordan Peterson, he says that we don't
He's
have
kind
any
to.
we don't have any real security in life other than our ability to adapt and contend. And so you developing this armor is something that does align with me, right? It's using the journey and the pain and the struggle and our natural characteristics as an advantage, to build that armor and to strengthen ourselves, right? So I want to know more about that, man. So like, what is, you've mentioned already a few times your process, right? Process. I'm trying to sound Canadian.
Yeah.
I'm just fucking with you, man. So, but what does the process look like? Like, like how did you start putting together those pieces? What do those bricks look like?
Yeah, so this is the best part. So developing armor for myself, I'm like, what do I got to do? I look at what the traditional program does and how it operates. And if I want to just get sober and that's my only goal, then like, I don't know. I'm just thinking to myself, and now I hate saying this because I don't want to discourage other people, but me in that position, I'm like, well, what the fuck's the point? I'm like, if I'm going to do this, I have to continuously grow. And what are the aspects or what are the parts of my life that are going to be affected the most? And that was 5 things: my aspirations, my revenue, muscle, oneness, relationships, armor.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Hey.
So the idea is if I continuously improve in those 5 aspects of my life, it would be unreasonable for me to fail, because if one drops down, I've got the others to support it. I've got aspirations that I like, true, real aspirations, goals. I've identified them. My revenue, I need to not just make more money to live the life that I want to live, but I have to be a better leader and I have to lead other people. Muscle, I got to get in shape. I got to, this is the vessel that we're given. God has given us this amazing body to live in. And when people are treating it like a dumpster, it's probably the most disrespect that you could do to your creator. Oneness, this is my confidence, my courage, my purpose, my mission. And then relationships, relationships are probably, well, there's the second most important, because, your relationship with yourself is always most important. And then I back that up with what I call the iron C's. So each one, I've got the 6 iron C's. First is clarity. I have to get crystal clear on what I want them to look like. And then I have to build that out to milestones. Every year, what does it look like? Every quarter, what does it look like? And what do I have to do every single day to move that needle? That's my clarity. The next C is confidence. How do I build confidence through this? Well, the best and easiest way to build confidence is keeping the promise that you made to yourself. So I would start making these daily non-negotiables to match what my clarity was. So those would kind of align. And I would start small and start building confidence throughout. And then I could, do bigger tasks. And then the third is courage. I know that I have to take courageous action, and it's not always pretty. So how do I build courage? Confidence and courage is not factory installed. We don't come with an owner's manual. We have to develop these like any other muscle. So I would start taking small risks, and these risks, when I say small for your listeners, like, man, a small risk when I was starting out was taking a cold fucking shower. I know that it's not going to hurt me, but it sucks. And then I knew that I could do that. I could take bigger risks. And now it's like, $1 million investments and that kind of stuff. And it literally grew from the cold shower. And then the next one is consistency. I have to be consistent. So I need some kind of measuring device, right? So I would measure it. And this way I would know if I was on track or off track and whether I'm going to reach my milestones or not. So I can adjust and pivot throughout the process. The next one is core values. And this is most important. And I want to stress this for your listeners. And my podcast, The Final Relapse, was based around this originally, is that what most people fail at and why they relapse is they don't have a way to measure their choices and decisions. They don't have a process on measuring their choices. And this can be as simple as a small set of core values. Mine are learn, leadership through action, evolve to greatness, accountability to oneself, resilience in the face of adversity, and no surrender. And I live by those. So when I'm faced with a decision, I can go to my core values and say, hey, does this align with who I am at my core? And then the last one is charisma. So everything I've learned, I can take and walk into a room, own that room, and share that knowledge because I've learned all of this. I've learned everything that I've been able to do, and everybody should do this because true purpose is always about helping others. So you be able to walk into a room, own the room, and share your knowledge because knowledge kept is knowledge stolen. And if you don't have charisma, people will not listen to you and they won't learn and progress themselves. I may not know the meaning of life, but I like to think I know the purpose, and that is to continuously grow and to help others as well.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's the frameworks are solid, as solid as I've ever heard. And that's I'm curious, when you talk about the core values and you had mentioned, like the measurement, and I believe there's a statement I live by that, what gets observed gets improved, right? If what you observe or measure, it typically gets better just by you measuring it, just by stepping on a scale every day and just observing your weight, you will consciously make some smaller adjustments throughout the day and
Where
you'll
focus
find.
goes, energy flows.
Right. Well, I'm curious, how do you have like metrics? When you're making these observations, do you have a quantifiable, like, do you have like some kind of a scale or like, what are you putting together as far as that's concerned?
Yeah, it's simplicity is the key in all of this. It's a very well thought out. I took a lot of time to kind of sort this out and understand how I'm going to do it, but it's very simple. All of it's very simple. The measuring stick that I use is so simple. I look at armor. I look at all of the 5 pillars of armor, and I rate them every single day on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. No threes. Threes are not allowed. This forces me to tip the scale. Am I doing good or am I doing bad? Right? So I always want to be at 2s and 4s. 1 is bad. 5, if I'm sitting at a 5, that tells me that it's time for a new challenge and I got to drop that number down. That tells me I'm not growing. If I'm sitting at a 5, I'm comfortable. So now when I look at this, I can adjust my daily routines or my daily non-negotiables according to what I need to improve on. If my relationships are down, let's say I've allowed a relationship to go toxic, or there's a difficult conversation that needs to be had, I can take that now and I can go, okay, I'm a 2 on relationships because this is happening. Now I have to go to my journal and I'm like, all right, what do I have to do today to make that happen? Well, it's usually something that you don't want to do.
Right.
Eat the frog, get it done and fucking over with. So I got to have this conversation today to clear the air, right? Non-negotiable, has to be done. Doesn't matter what else is going on. And then I do that. And then it's a constant, what people often do is they come up with these goals and they get so focused on, you know, a few weeks out where they lose the long vision. Mine are like 5, 10 years. And I stay true to that because your day to day shit is going to change. Things you got to be able to be quick. This is going to come up. This is going to change. This was a good idea once, but now it's not good anymore. You got to be able to move and pivot really fast. And people get scared when they have to make changes on a dime. And that holds them back. It's ultimately fear that holds them back from stepping into the unknown and finding something absolutely fantastic or incredible or miraculous. However you want to describe it, everybody has different definitions for all of these words, but the things that you find great to change your life.
Right. Well, there's something, and this is all like crazy high level, so developed, methodical, and I love it. Well, I will say this though, man, and this is where if I were to be thinking as my old self, right? I'm thinking as myself maybe just 4 years ago. And let me digress a little bit here. When I was in the depths or in the trenches of addiction and alcoholism, my entire scope of vision and life was shrunk to 4 hours. And I say this a lot. Why? Because that's about when I started sobering up from whatever the last pill was and whatever the last drink was. At about 4 hours, I started, I'm getting itchy, or I'm getting, whatever it may be. I would start to kind of freak out. And so my entire life was shrunk to these 4 hours. And that was in the depths of the addiction. So as myself, even 4 or 5 years ago, I struggled so hard, brother, with the 5 and 10 years. And I would sit down with a very dear friend and he'd say, all right, well, where do you see yourself 3 years? It didn't matter. I'm like, I was so used to thinking at 4-hour intervals, man. Like it was a big deal. And it was very hard for me for such a long period of time to even think of a week. And so I do know that as a person puts together the day by day, which is most times a necessary element, that's a necessary phase or part of it.
For sure.
Day by day, I started off originally with 15 minutes. That was my initial goal. Don't touch the bottle for 15 minutes. That is my goal. And I would fucking fail. Like I would make it to like 11 minutes. I'd be at work, like drinking vodka. I'm like, man, anyways, but point is that like, okay, what would you do with maybe a person who hasn't developed the ability to think in such to think about 5 years? Maybe, like how would you maybe shrink some of this down to make it maybe a little bit more digestible for somebody that hasn't discovered how to think that far ahead?
Yeah, it's very simple. Again, simplicity. Look at your life now in those 5 areas, your health and your fitness, your relationships, your faith, all of these aspects, and be honest with yourself. Truth. I always revert to truth, no matter what. And as uncomfortable as it is, and start small, take imperfect action. There's one thing that's happening right now that's fucking up your life. And even if it's you can't get away from the bottle, start on something else and start small. Have a difficult conversation with your wife or your husband. This is what I'm thinking about doing. And, here's the thing. The truth is they're probably going to laugh at you. They're probably going to go, you've told me this a million times. They're not going to believe you. And why the fuck should they believe you? You have lied. You've lied to yourself. You've lied to them. Start with small promises to yourself. Keep that promise where they're easy to keep. Build that confidence, build that courage, and keep progressing forward with that. My very first non-negotiable was I will not hit snooze again. I will never hit snooze again. So I put my phone on the dresser on the other side, and my wife hates mornings. And I'm up. I started a 4 a.m. thing. I'm going to be up at 4 a.m. I'm not going to work out. I'm just going to go to the gym, and for the first few days, first few days, I sat in my car outside of the gym and cried because I was so disappointed in myself. I thought I was such a piece of shit. I created this identity and I believed it. I had convinced myself so deeply that I was a piece of shit that I would sit in the parking lot in front of the gym and I would cry. And then I just kept going. And eventually I'm like, well, fuck, I'm here. Might as well go in. Go in, walk around. It's my gym. It wasn't a public gym. I go in, walk around, keep myself away from the office and do whatever, just kind of walk through the motions. And I'm like, this fucking sucks. And then eventually, and I just kept going again.
Right.
And then eventually it was like, oh, I might as well start pushing some weight. And then next thing you know, I'm there 7 days a week. I'm in the gym at 4:45 and it becomes habit. And once it develops into a habit, I can now replace that non-negotiable with a new one.
Yeah. Yeah.
You do it so often, it becomes, I don't know if you've ever read the book Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill.
I have not. I've read Think and Go Rich, of course, but
Okay. So Ryan, I'm about to change your world forever. So Napoleon Hill wrote this book in 1930. Him and his wife found it so controversial that they wouldn't release it until they were deceased and their kids were deceased. And it didn't get published until 2011. And
shit,
it is more true now than it was then. And it's him. He's got the devil on the stand and he's got the hold on the devil where he cannot lie. He has to tell him his truth. So Churchill is interviewing the devil and it's a conversation back forth. Man, it is mind blowing.
I gotta get my hands on that. Yes, dude, it's
free on
crazy.
Spotify. It's literally my life's playbook now.
Okay.
Anyways, so he talks about, I can't remember what he calls it now. Anyways, it's basically, hypnotic rhythm. Once you do something for so long, it becomes hypnotic rhythm. And he talks about it in a negative aspect on once people are into this, he has them in his control for life. The hypnotic rhythm is basically building a habit, doing a habit so many times that it's such a part of you that you no longer can escape it. And I've developed that in the gym.
Right.
I've developed that in my morning routine. I've developed that in how I show up with my kids. If I don't do that now, I literally I'm off. My whole mindset is out of balance and I have to go back to it just to get myself back on track.
Yeah. And I think I've heard a lot of starting small stories, brother, but going to the gym and crying, that might be a new body because you just go to the gym and crying, but you did it. So, I mean, at least, so this is what I know happened. You're like, okay, I obviously didn't get much of a workout in, but I showed the fuck up. And so you took that little win. And so like with me, and I always tell people that like kind of when I started, I was at like 265, just fat and just weak, couldn't do any push-ups. I had like a broken arm and I was in this phase like, well, I gotta start somewhere. And so I started with 3 minutes total of jumping jacks in a day, not 3 minutes straight, not a 3-minute round. We're talking like 20 seconds, an hour later, 20 seconds, but it was how I could digest it. It was how I could, it was something I could commit to. Right. And so I did it. And then and again, just like you had mentioned, like once you start to satisfy that, you will push it a little bit further. So then the 3 minutes turn into, well, it's got to be 3 minutes in an hour. And then it's got to be, 3 minutes straight. And then it's, and then it just built on itself. However, yeah, that's just showing up to the gym and crying for several days in a row.
And I was so hard on myself because I knew that I had to go in, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. My mind was fighting me so hard and it would just, I would just break down, man. And that was like 3 or 4 days straight before I actually went in and started moving.
Dude, but it's if that's where you're at, to who anybody's like, listen, it's okay. It doesn't matter where the fuck we are or when you look to your left and right, it doesn't matter because there's some place inside of yourself where it's not something you're going to write home about. It's not something you're going to post about. That's for sure. But if you could get anything done for say just 3 days at a time, man, you've already placed like a little tiny brick in the wall, right? it's usually humbling. Most times it's pretty humbling to make that move. But man,
Imperfect action. Whatever that action is, just take imperfect action.
yeah, I do that shit all the time, man. Nowadays, I'm constantly taking imperfect action,
Yeah,
almost like a fucking maniac, you know. Like I'll just do.
yeah.
I mean, I did my first jujitsu class last night, and
Nice.
okay, I just went in there. Actually, it ended up just being the striking class because I think I showed up at the wrong time. But nonetheless, I just barreled through that thing. I didn't give a shit, you know. I was like, I'm gonna do everything wrong. I am going to get my ass kicked. I am going to be out of breath. This is not going to go well. I was already knew. I'm like, it's not going to be a success. Like, I'm not going to go in there and kick everybody's ass. That is not the success. The success was that I imperfectly showed up, went through the door, got thrown around for a while, and then I made it out. And it's like, I'm like, win. That is a fucking win, you know? And
People
so,
think people think we live in an age where you have everything at your fingertips at any time and you have instant gratification. People have lost the ability to build delayed gratification, and they think that they go in there and when they fail that it's a failure. No. What we see as failure, what most people see as failure, is temporary setback. That's all that is. You know, failure, the only time you fail is death, as far as I'm concerned. There's nothing in between, because you can fail, what people call fail, a million times before you get it right. So was that failure or was that a learning opportunity? No, it's temporary setbacks. That's all that is. And like you going in and doing jujitsu that you've never done, yeah, you're going to get your ass kicked. Of course. You know, it would be unreasonable for you to be good on your first day, and people aren't willing to, you know, kind of accept that fact and just take imperfect action. It's like, fuck, man, just do it. And people talk about, you know, these guys like Trump and Musk and, you know, like, oh, well, you know, they've been bankrupt 4 times. Well, of course they have. Anybody who's successful at that level has failed so many times that they learn from their mistakes. There's no possible way for you to get it right the first time. Mind you, there are outliers, so don't ever compare yourself to outliers. But for 99.9% of the population, you have to fail multiple times before you get it right. Whatever you do, you know?
yeah, that's probably, I mean, that's a big lesson, brother. It's a huge lesson because there's so many, I mean, and it sucks too when you instead of building, like when you talked about confidence and keeping promises to yourself, like it works against you too, right? Once you've broken your promise to yourself so many times about quitting drugs and alcohol, like you think that that's just going to happen because that's what has happened. And so then you start to take off of the table that you can never do it. And so that's always, but for anybody listening, it can work it can work in the other direction. You just have to figure out what that looks like for you. And so if it's showing up to the gym and crying, or if it's just 15 minutes without taking a drink, I mean, whatever that may look like for you deep down inside, then, hey, that's where it is. That's where that little nugget is. But I'm curious though, Ivan, like, you developed all these frameworks. All right. So what does it look like here in the real world? I mean, what else did it turn into? I mean, I mean, this is glorious, by the way. It's such a meticulous and a beautiful, like, structure, right? Like,
Yeah.
with behaviors and measurements and all of that. Like, but where is it? How are you using it in the world? Like, I mean, or, sharing
Yes,
it, I guess.
I have a group called Clad Brotherhood, and it's just a group of men where we use these techniques to improve all aspects of our life. And the goal is to get guys sober, but like, we don't talk about booze, because once you're sober, it's only a few days. We're on to the next thing. We don't identify with that. It's where else in my life can I improve? And then it's constant growth. So that part of it. And then I have armor coaching. So I do high performance coaching. It turns out that addicts are the same people as entrepreneurs. We're the exact same fucking person. Now, this has led me into my speaking career. So I have armor coaching, where I do high performance coaching for executives and entrepreneurs with the same framework, but it's led me into a speaking career. And the kind of approach that I have is, we're telling addicts that they have a disease. So now you're telling them that they have a predisposition, that it's a lifelong sentence. There's nothing you can do about it. And this is what my sister was convinced of. What if we flip the script? What if it's not in a predisposition or a disease? What if it was actually an innate ability?
Yeah.
What if it was actually a fucking superpower? You literally have the ability. You've been given this gift to be able to obsess on something. And this is where I really, really do not like the diagnosis of alcohol use disorder. I don't even think it's a real thing. I think once you put a label on it, now you can prescribe things, but we won't go down that rabbit hole. But if you have alcohol use disorder and you take alcohol out of it and you put crack in there, well, it's no longer alcohol use disorder. Now take crack out of there and put fitness in there. You see these guys obsess over the gym. Well, it's no longer alcohol use disorder, right? It's an obsessive mindset that you can have. Now, take fitness out of there and put armor in there. Aspirations, revenue, muscle, oneness, relationships. Now, is it still a disease?
Right.
You have an innate ability. God's given you this superpower. All you need to do is put a leash on that motherfucker and direct it, right? That's it. You got to control this beast and point it in a direction. And once you do, man, the power, the traditional programs say you're powerless against it. No, we have all the power. You just have to harness it. You have to dig deep. You got to find it. Prove to yourself that you can do these things. Prove yourself that you have courage.
Yeah. Dude, you nailed it. And I say this a lot, that, the addicts have made the world go round. Mother Teresa was most certainly addicted to peace and caring for people. And she put herself in harm's way in order to make that happen. That tenacity, right, is what addicts all share. And so, Steve Jobs is addicted to innovation, right? There's no doubt about it. He stepped all over everybody to make that happen. And so if you can
a lot of people were past addicts. Look at Dan Martell,
Yeah.
Like a lot of these people have figured it out, but they're not trapped in this system of reoccurring thought process of creating an identity that we no longer want.
Yeah. And it's so true, man. If you could take it, you could take that tenacity, right? Because are you going to stop an addict from getting high? No, they are going to figure it out. And so if, again, like you were saying, you put armor in there, or you put something constructive, and just take that same energy, don't try to moderate it. Don't try to bottle it up, because it just doesn't work. If it is inside you, and you have that characteristic to have that kind of tenacity to go after something, and you just like you said, just change the end goal. And people do that, right, with alcohol and crack, or they do it and they put all these other things in there because they don't have the right guidance. They don't have somebody like yourself saying, check it out. We're going to not change you. You're perfect, but we're just going to change the target. We're going to change the aim, and then we're going to change everything that we put into you. And so now you're this loaded weapon, but now you're aimed at a very healthy target. It's going to help. It's going to help you and everybody around you. And so, man, it's so badass. I love it. That is absolutely
problem, Ryan. The big problem is, and I'm not going to go any further with this, but the big problem is healthy people that are courageous, fit, want to create a better system and a better life are not easily controlled. So there is nothing in system to support healthy growth. If we get people just sober enough, kind of ride that line and create this identity that they can never escape, that's a really good sales funnel for, pharmaceuticals, insurance companies,
right.
Other places. Just saying.
Yeah.
That's my own. Yeah, it's out there. I'm saying it. We'll see what the negative feedback is, but
I don't think there's any negative feedback. There's a good amount of awakening going on with people, but at the end of the day, man, people will, but it's tricky though. It's tricky that you say that, because I sometimes try to imagine myself, if I was just so desperate to just be average, or if I was just so desperate just to be normal. Why? Because I've been living in a trench, or I've been living in the gutter, or I've been living in a shelter. And then you, in your mind, you're like, man, it'd be way greater if I just had a house, or I just had a room to rent. And so there is, but it's people like you are the bridge, right? It's people like you that are like, catch them on that wave of sobriety and they've got some recovery under their belt. And you're like, let's fucking go. Don't just, catch one little wave and then go sit on the beach. No. Well, let's pour some more fuel on this fire and just take it to the next level, because it can happen. It can happen. And you can just take that energy and use it, man. And like pour gasoline on that little flame, that whatever came from that 3 or 6 months of sobriety that turns into a year, turns into 3 years. And then boom, you've got yourself a superpower, right?
It's like, awesome. It's like the difference between a good therapist and a bad therapist. A good therapist let's start with a bad therapist. A bad therapist who doesn't have your best interests in mind, because they're out there. They keep repeating your problems. You go to them and they repeat and they talk about these traumas in your life over and over and over, because you are what we call good MR, monthly recurring revenue, right? So the longer that we can repeat that and create that narrative in your mind, the more you'll keep coming back. Where a good therapist is going to take that, we're going to sort that out, we're going to compartmentalize it, figure it out in pieces, and then move on to the next step.
Love it. It's huge, right? Man. That's huge, because you're right. Both kinds are out there. They're like, man, I'm going to get this guy every week. He's coming to me every week for the next 10 years. Why would I want him to get better? Why would I want him to get better? What, am I stupid? No, of course not. I'm just going to keep letting him ride that line of mediocrity.
Give him enough progress that he will keep coming back, that he's seeing movement, but there are better strategies out there. Listen, I'm not saying the traditional methods don't work. They obviously have saved a lot of people, but it's old. There's new ways. And once you're past a certain threshold, you should no longer be identifying and falling into that. You should be moving on to the next thing, and then the next thing, and then the next thing. Man, people don't realize how powerful we are as humans. A mentor of mine, very, very remarkable person, Andy Frisella, he says personal excellence is the ultimate rebellion. And truer words have never been spoken. It is by far the only way that you can truly rebel against the devil or the opposition, whatever they are in your life. The only way to battle the opposition is through personal excellence. All that you can control is yourself, your own mind, your own body. Anything else is beyond your control. You just have to be able to pivot and move yourself.
Badass, brother. I want you to share with everybody how they could get either into Ironclad, or, how can they put on their armor? I mean, what does it look like to work with you, brother? Where can we find more? What is
everything? I'm easy to find. Everything is at ivanfredette.com. If somebody wants me at one of their events, speaking, workshop, whatever, that's kind of my speaker page. In there is a link for Ironclad, armor coaching, my podcast, The Final Relapse, and then something new I'm working on. Really cool. It's going to be an obstacle mud race to tie it all together here at our facility.
Okay.
And yeah, it's kind of this, mental challenge, and we can host all kinds of. Anyways, check it out. It'll be coming soon. And Ivan Fredette on Facebook, Ivan Fredette everywhere.
Perfect. Awesome, man. No, listen, dude, you're a new hero of mine. I'm going to pick up that book from Napoleon Hill for sure. I'm going to check you out too.
Winning the Devil.